Hi, I'm Barna Verba, and today we are Am I recording? Hi, I'm Barna Verba, and today we are going to talk about my song Rest in Peace, which is considering the issues of death and afterlife. Well, we are all going to die someday, whether you like it or not. It is coming, and there is a really great question about what happens next. I'm a Christian. I believe that there is heaven and hell. I believe that not for our actions, but for our faith, we go to heaven, and that ultimately we are all deserving of hell. And because God loves us, that's why we are given the chance to believe and to go to heaven. So the song itself is about the idea of running the rat race, of getting really tired of life in general, especially as people get old and they are getting to an old age and all of their friends are dying and life is hard. So yeah, basically the concept is about that, like us running around, getting tired of life and just asking the question, what's going to happen in the afterlife? From my perspective, we are going to heaven, but I don't really have an idea how that's gonna look like. I just know that it should be good, but we really don't have a conceptual idea of like how it's actually going to look like. And that's where I was thinking about that. I think many people think about heaven in a way where it's just going to be like an everlasting fun vacation kind of thing. And I'm just really not sure about that. I thought, or like my thoughts are just based on biblical principles and based on how I understand God's person, is that it's going to be good works. We are going to desire good works and we are going to do good work. So it's going to be work. Imagine that you have your dream job and you can do that and you just do your dream job because you love it and you can do that for an eternity. But I don't know how that looks because, it's really difficult to think about eternity in general when even just living less than 100 years sometimes can get so difficult. So anyway, I'm going to go kind of line by line, similar to Genius interview or whatever, about the song itself. So I'm going to sing a part and then just kind of like going to dissect the lyrics a little bit, which some of it I already have, but just going to in a little bit more detail. And start to sing gold, sorry. Running around in circles, not knowing how many laps I've done. Oh, the passion is long gone. I can't feel my legs anymore. I barely can breathe, my lungs are numb. How much longer can I run? So the first verse is about the idea of getting tired of the rat race, especially so my situation is that my wife and I are both working. We both are entrepreneurs. Both of us are trying to work in our own shifts and we have 3 children. And it can get really tiring and really exhausting that you want to do your work so much because you love it and you love your children even more. So you're just broken about the fact that you are not necessarily able to spend enough time on either to the quantity or quality that you desire to, and that can get really burdening and really difficult. I know it's a season now because the kids are really small, so some of that, like our daughter is not even going to daycare yet, for example. Our son is going to daycare now, but once we move to the States, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So just the whole idea of what are we gonna do now, and just being in this consistent, what are we gonna do, and not being able to work enough, then finances are a bit harder. It's fine, we are okay, but it's like always this consistent small amount of stress of like, how are we gonna do the next day? How are we gonna how are we going to get work done? How are we going to increase, and how are we going to do the things that we really want to do to help musicians, to help other people, to bring the gospel, talk about Jesus to many of the others during life, when, for example, I barely even meet people because I'm home watching the kids or home working on music. So anyway, life can get hard, and the first verse is about that, of like getting tired of the rat race. I'm not sure how much longer can I go, but it also foreshadows the idea that, one day I'm going to die, and what's going to happen there? When I and the ground collide, I hope there's no more running in the afterlife. So the pre-chorus is setting up the question of, I hope that there's like the afterlife, the general thinking of that. I hope that the afterlife is going to be peaceful and it's not going to be bothersome or strugglesome. And many people think, as I said before, that the afterlife is going to be like, like laying on a beach, Hawaii, and God is sitting on your right and you're talking to God as you're like sunbathing or whatever, where there's no skin cancer, or I don't know. It doesn't even really matter. Like, the idea of the pre is foreshadowing that, oh, this person, or in this case me, I guess, because the song is sung by me and is kind of about me, but how we desire that, oh, heaven would be this restful place. And I think it's going to be much more like a beautiful burden. And I know it's really difficult to think about burden in heaven. It's like, burden in heaven, it can't be a burden. Well, God is talking about that his burden is beautiful and it's easy, and like, there's so much beauty in doing things that are difficult to do, yet God is giving you the power to carry it out because he shows you what you need to do. You do it. It's not going to be easy. I don't think that God wants us to have it easy, not even in heaven. He wants us to grow, because we can always grow. We can always be better. We can always be transformed to the picture of Christ more. So even though we desire this laziness, kind of like almost lazy picture of heaven, I think it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be something where you will wake up every morning and you will feel this inherent beautiful purpose on your life, that what I do is important and what I do matters, which really often, I guess, in life, that's one of the reasons why we get tired, because it's easy to get to these dark places in your mind where, oh, what I do doesn't matter. For example, I make music, and really often, when especially it doesn't get the exposure that I wish it would, it's really easy to think this way. It's like, I'm wasting my time. What am I doing? Why am I not just working an office job, making great money so I can support my family fully without having to worry? But then I realized that, no, wait a second, like, God has given me this talent, and he wants me to work on this. My wife wants me to work on this. And I want to give an example to my children of perseverance and going through hardship with the things you love and stick by it and driving it to success. But it's really easy, even for me, to get into this place. And I'm a really optimistic, positive person in general, but it's so easy to get into this place in my mind of like, what I'm doing doesn't matter. I don't reach any people. The people that are listening to my songs or watching my videos don't engage. So that must mean that they don't care, or that they didn't think about it, or what they heard doesn't really matter. It's a cool song, but who cares? There's over a million songs released every single year. Who cares? Like, just one drop in the ocean, who cares? But that's the thing, like, I can't think that way. I have to think that it matters. And I think in heaven, that's how it's going to be. We are going to have this confidence, this reassurance that what you do really does matter. Now, that might be hard. That not might be the exact thing that you just want to do all the time. You might have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but it is for the greater good of the kingdom. It is the greater good of heaven. It is the greater good of your brothers and sisters. So I think it's just going to be this beautiful picture. So many friends already checked out. They lost hope for what's to come, only seeing what they've done. Looking back for any meaning, haunted by the thought of none. Was it just a worthless run? So the second verse is talking about the idea of, instead of introspective, of like focusing on myself, focusing on the people around me. As I mentioned in the intro, people around us, eventually as we get old, I saw that on my grandparents, people just die out from next to you. And you're holding on to this life, but then eventually, if you are lucky enough to get old, then you start to realize that, wait a second, the reason why it's difficult to get old is because people disappear. We all die someday, and they disappear from you, and you see that, like, whether it's because they have given up on life, whether it's because of illness, whether it's because of whatever reason, we eventually all die. Like, we are kind of maxing out at 100. I mean, sometimes over, but it's rare. Maybe one day we are going to be able to live for 200 years, but that's kind of beyond the point. Eventually, we are all going to die and have to deal with the idea and the consequence of death and what happens after that. Now, you might believe that there's nothing after death, but I have a lot of questions about that. That might be another video. But what if there's nothing after death? What if there's heaven and hell after death? What if there's nirvana? You know, like, you have to deal with these questions because something will happen. Even if nothing happens, that means that nothing, I mean, that doesn't make any sense that nothing happens, but then you have to deal with that this is all you've got, what you have here. So anyway, the second verse is talking about that. It's talking about this idea of friends dying and how many old people, or not even old people, like young people that get sick, like deathly ill, and they are laying on their deathbed thinking about what did I do with my life? So how important it is that we live a life that's worth living, and not from the perspective of other people, but from the perspective of our own conviction. Now, my conviction is a conviction of I want to live my life to the fullest so I can build God's kingdom. And when I stand in front of him, I can tell him that I think I've done everything I could, Lord. I probably could have done more. I probably always could have done more. I hope everyone can say that about themselves, that probably I could have done more, but I tried my best. And I want to be able to stand in front of God and say that I tried my best. And, you know, like, I don't want to stand in front of him and ask myself the question, like, what all this amounted up to. I want to stand in front of God and tell him, God, I know that I wasn't perfect. I know that I probably missed way more opportunities than I should have. I probably were lazy way more often than I should have been. But altogether, I think I did the most that I felt I could, which is kind of like almost an oxymoron in a sense, where it's like, how could you be lazy but do the most? Well, because I can only look into the future and make decisions for the future. I can't make decisions for the past. But anyway, that's the second verse. It's about this idea of people looking back and not finding any meaning in their life, because so often we get caught up in materialism and how do we look? Like, how do we look to other people? Do we have the nice big house, or do we have the nice car, or do we have the revenue or the good job or the great title or whatever? And really often we get so obsessed with this idea of how we look that we lose sight of what really matters in life, of like, did we live a meaningful life that added up to something? And not because of like, oh, based on that I'm going to be judged. As a Christian, I don't believe that. I don't think that I am judged by my actions per se, even though my actions might be really important. My actions speak of my faith, yes. So if my actions are terrible, then how could I speak of Jesus, and how can I speak of like this faith in this good God if my actions are not good? But I don't think that like my actions are the things that are like determining my fate. But in general, I feel like that really often we are focusing on building our own kingdoms instead of building God's kingdom. I believe with all of my heart and with all my conviction that the Jesus story and Christianity is true. But even if you don't believe that, you have to ask yourself that question, like, what does my life amount to? And if you're just building your own kingdom, then is it worth it? Because you're going to die, and nothing you compile here on earth, you will take nothing with you. And then we have the pre coming back again and the chorus, and then the song is ending. So with all that, what I want to... Oh yeah, I didn't talk about or did I talk about the chorus? No, I didn't talk about the chorus, but the chorus is kind of obvious. Rest in peace, will I rest in peace? It's just a question, like, what's going to happen after death? And kind of this is the thought that I want to leave you with at the end of this video. I want you to ask yourself the question of like, what's going to happen after death? And what does that have to do with how I live my life? And not because whether you're judged or not by that. I mean, some faith, like some belief systems believe that you are judged by your actions. It's like a two-sided, what's the name of that? It's a pendulum where, you know, like there's a left and a right side, and your good actions and bad actions amount to something. I don't believe that. But whatever you believe, you have to ask yourself the question, what happens after death? And if nothing happens after death, then what am I going to do with that life that I have? And if there's something after death, then what does that mean to my life now? You have to ask these questions, because I think there's way too many of us that are living a life just grinding away. And I'm not saying that that's wrong necessarily, but what is the goal? Are you building your own kingdom? Or are you building towards something greater? And even if you don't believe in Jesus, you don't believe in heaven, you don't believe in hell, you have to think about, like, what am I building towards? Like, what is my purpose? Because I know that all of us have a purpose, and I believe that all of us have a chance to lead a life that is beautiful and wonderful. But I think it has to be about letting our ego go and really focus on how can we help others, how can we make the best of our abilities and the best of our situations. And yeah, be responsible. Sometimes that means being successful, being financially successful even. There's nothing wrong with that, but we all have to ask the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? So if nothing else, at the end of your life, when you're lying on your deathbed, you can look back at your life and you can tell yourself that I think I've done the most of it. And I'm gonna tell you, even though I never experienced that, but based on many people's experiences of old elderly people, you have to ask yourself the question, what have I done with my life? So do something with your lives that's worthy. Help others. Be there for others. Be there for your friends. Be there for your family. Be kind to others. There's so many things you can do that are not major changes. Some of you might need major changes, but not all of us. So I just want to encourage you, as you go on about your day, or as you go to bed, or whatever, wherever you are, in whatever time zone you are, think about how you can make your life count tomorrow. So when you are on your deathbed, you can look back and have a smile on your face. Well, this was the video. Have a good day. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. You can listen to my music. In the description, you can find my website link. You can click that, listen to my music there, or on Spotify or whatever streaming platform, or even here on YouTube. So yeah, if you want to support the channel, go to my website, look at the merch, or just comment. I actually really wonder about your opinions. I really am wondering what you think, what you believe, and how you live your life. What do you do? What is important to you? It's not a bragging game. I just really wonder, like, what do you do? What motivates you to wake up every day? Yeah, that was that. Bye.